My name is Emily Carter, and for most of my life, I believed I understood what love was. I was 29 when I married Daniel Brooks. We lived in a small two-bedroom house in Ohio with a white porch, a little garden, and a kitchen that was too small for two people to move around in at the same time. Our life was not exciting, but it was warm. Daniel worked for a local construction company, and I worked at a dental office in town. Every Friday night, we ordered pizza, watched old movies, and laughed about the same silly things. Daniel was a good man. That was the first thing that made my secret so painful. He never forgot my coffee this morning. He called me during lunch just to ask if I had eaten. When I came home tired, he would take off my coat and say, "You work too hard, Em." He loved me in a quiet way, and I loved him. At least I thought I did. For 5 years, I had tried to forget one name, Ryan Miller. Ryan was my first love. We met when we were 19, during our first year at a community college. He worked part-time at a bookstore, and I used to spend hours pretending to look for books, just so I could talk to him. We were young. We had no money, no plans, and no idea how complicated life could become. Ryan used to tell me, "One day, Emily, I'm going to take you somewhere you've never been." I believed him. Then life happened. His father became sick, and Ryan left school to help his family. I stayed behind because my mother needed me too. We slowly stopped calling. Then months became years. I eventually met Daniel. He gave me stability. He made me feel safe. So I buried Ryan in the deepest part of my heart and tried to build a new life. For years, it worked. Until one rainy Tuesday afternoon. I was standing behind the reception desk at the dental office when the front door opened. I looked up automatically and smiled at the next patient. Then my smile disappeared. A man stood there in a dark blue jacket, holding a folded umbrella. His hair was shorter than I remembered, and there were faint lines around his eyes. But I knew those eyes. My heart stopped. "Ryan?" He stared at me for several seconds. Then he smiled. "Hi, Emily." I forgot how to breathe. He had come to the office because he was looking for a dentist after moving back to town. At least, that was what he told me. I tried to act normal. I entered his information into the computer while my hands shook under the desk. "How long have you been back?" I finally asked. 3 weeks. 3 weeks. He had been living in the same town for 3 weeks, and I had not known. When his appointment was over, he waited near the door. "Can I ask you something?" I nodded. "Are you happy?" It was such a simple question, but I couldn't answer. I looked at my wedding ring. "Yes," I whispered. Ryan looked at the ring, then back at me. "I'm glad." He left. That night, Daniel was waiting for me at home with takeout from my favorite Chinese restaurant. He kissed my forehead and asked about my day. I smiled and said, "It was normal." But it wasn't. Because after 5 years, the man I had tried so hard to forget was back. And the most frightening part was not that Ryan had returned. It was that the moment I saw him, a part of my heart had recognized him before my mind could stop it. I lay awake beside Daniel that night, listening to the rain tap against our bedroom window. Daniel was sleeping peacefully, one hand resting near mine. I almost reached for him, but I stopped. For the first time since our wedding, I was afraid of my own heart. And I knew, somehow, this was only the beginning. I did not know it yet, but my quiet marriage was about to change forever. The next morning, I woke up before Daniel. For a few seconds, I forgot everything. Then I remembered Ryan. I turned toward Daniel and watched him sleep. His face looked peaceful. He had one arm under his pillow and the other resting on the blanket between us. I felt ashamed. Nothing had happened between Ryan and me. Not yet. But something had changed inside me, and I hated myself for it. "Morning, sleepyhead," Daniel whispered suddenly. I jumped. He opened his eyes and smiled. "You're staring at me?" I forced a laugh. "I was just thinking." "About what?" "Work." It was my first lie, and it would not be my last. For the next few days, I tried to forget Ryan again. I stayed busy at the dental office, I cleaned the house, I cooked dinner. I went grocery shopping with Daniel on Saturday morning. But everywhere I went, I remembered him. The sound of his voice, the way he looked at me, the question he had asked. "Are you happy?" One evening, I came home and found a small envelope on the kitchen counter. My name was written on it. I stared at it for several seconds before opening it. Inside was a small piece of paper. It said, "I'm sorry if seeing me brought back difficult memories. I just wanted you to know that I never forgot you. Ryan." I sat down at the kitchen table. My heart was pounding. I should have thrown the note away. Instead, I folded it carefully and put it inside the drawer beside my old photographs. That night, Daniel noticed I was quiet. "You okay?" "Yes." "You've been distant lately." I looked at him. For one terrible moment, I wanted to tell him everything. I wanted to say, "Ryan is back, and I don't know what I'm feeling." But the words stayed inside my mouth. "I'm just tired," I said. Daniel reached across the table and held my hand. "You can always talk to me." I almost cried. Because he meant it. A week later, Ryan called the dental office. When I heard his voice on the phone, my heart started racing again. "Emily, I know this is strange," he said, "but would you have coffee with me?" I should have said no. Instead, I heard myself say, "Okay." We met at a little cafe downtown on a Sunday afternoon. I told Daniel I was meeting a friend from work. Another lie. Ryan was already sitting near the window when I arrived. He stood when he saw me. "You look beautiful." I smiled nervously. "You haven't changed much." He laughed. "That's a lie." I laughed too. For the first time in years, I felt like the 19-year-old girl I used to be. We talked for almost 2 hours. He told me about his father, his work, his years away from Ohio. I told him about my job, my mother, and my marriage. When I mentioned Daniel, Ryan became quiet. "Does he make you happy?" I looked down at my coffee. "Yes." Ryan nodded slowly. "Good." Then he asked, "But does he know you?" I didn't answer. Because I knew what he meant. Daniel knew the woman I had become. Ryan remembered the girl I had been. And somehow, being with Ryan made me miss that girl. When I got home, Daniel was waiting in the living room. "You were gone a long time." "I know, I'm sorry." He smiled and stood up. I made dinner. I looked at the table. 2 plates, 2 glasses, a candle in the middle. Daniel walked toward me and wrapped his arms around my waist. "I missed you." I closed my eyes. I wanted to feel the same simple certainty I had felt before Ryan returned. But my heart was no longer simple. That night, while Daniel showered, my phone buzzed. It was Ryan. "Thank you for today. I haven't felt this happy in years." I stared at the message. My fingers hovered over the screen. Then I typed, "I was happy too." I almost deleted it, but I didn't. And that tiny decision changed everything. The messages became more frequent. At first, they were harmless. "Good morning. How was your day? Did you sleep well?" Then they became personal. "Do you ever think about us? Do you remember the lake? Do you remember when you told me you loved me?" I remembered everything. One night, Ryan sent me a single message. "I still love you." I read it 3 times. Then I put my phone face down. Daniel was sitting beside me, watching television. Without looking away from the screen, he reached for my hand. I gave it to him, but for the first time, my hand was holding the man I had married while my heart was somewhere else. That was the moment I realized the truth. I wasn't simply remembering my past anymore. I was falling in love with it again. And I had no idea how many people I was about to hurt. I wish I could say that I stopped. I wish I could say I deleted Ryan's number, told Daniel the truth, and chose the life I had promised to protect. But I didn't. For the next few weeks, I lived 2 lives. At home, I was Daniel's wife. On my phone, I was Ryan's Emily. I told myself it was only emotional. I told myself that as long as Ryan and I didn't cross a certain line, I wasn't doing anything truly wrong. But the truth was simple. I was already betraying Daniel. One Friday evening, Daniel came home early. I was in the kitchen, smiling at a message from Ryan. Daniel walked in quietly. "What's so funny?" I nearly dropped my phone. "Nothing." He looked at me for a moment. "You've been smiling at that phone a lot lately." I put it on the counter. "It's just work." He nodded, but his eyes stayed on me. That night, Daniel asked me a question that I still remember. "Emily, are you in love with someone else?" The room became completely silent. My heart pounded so hard I thought he could hear it. "No!" The lie came out immediately. Daniel looked down. "I wanted to believe you." There was something broken in his voice. I reached for his hand, but he pulled it away. "I don't know what's happening to us anymore," he whispered. I couldn't sleep that night. At 3 in the morning, I went into the kitchen and sat alone in the darkness. I thought about Daniel. Then I thought about Ryan. And for the first time, I understood something terrible. I didn't want to lose either man. I wanted Daniel's kindness. I wanted Ryan's passion. I wanted the safety of one life and the excitement of another. I wanted everything. And because I wanted everything, I was slowly destroying everyone. 2 days later, Ryan asked me to meet him at the lake where we had spent so much time together when we were young. I knew I shouldn't go, but I went anyway. The lake looked almost exactly the same. The trees moved softly in the wind. The water was calm, and the old wooden bench was still there. Ryan stood beside it when I arrived. "I've been waiting for you," he said. I swallowed hard. "Ryan, this has to stop." His face changed. "What? I can't keep doing this." He stepped closer. "Do you love me?" I closed my eyes. "Yes." His eyes filled with tears. "Then leave him." I looked away. "It isn't that simple." "Why not?" "Because Daniel loves me." Ryan laughed bitterly. "And I don't?" "You do." "Then what's stopping you?" I had no answer. Ryan stepped back. "I waited years for you, Emily." "I know." "I thought when I came back, maybe life was finally giving us another chance." Tears rolled down my face. I wanted to believe that too. He stared at me. "Then why are you still choosing him?" "Because I made a promise." Ryan shook his head. "A promise without love isn't a marriage." His words hurt because part of me believed them. When I returned home, Daniel wasn't there. His car was gone. On the kitchen table was my phone. Beside it was a small stack of printed messages. My messages, my lies, my secret life. I froze. Daniel had seen everything. I heard the front door open. He walked inside. His eyes were red. Neither of us spoke. Finally, he said, "How long?" I couldn't lie anymore. "A few months." He nodded slowly. "Did you love him?" I couldn't look at him. "Yes." Daniel closed his eyes. I expected anger. I expected shouting. Instead, he whispered, "That hurts more than anything you could have said." I began crying. "Daniel, I'm sorry." He looked at me. "You were sleeping beside me while thinking about him." "Yes." "You kissed me while talking to him." I couldn't answer. He nodded as tears rolled down his face. I kept asking myself what was wrong with me. "Nothing was wrong with you." Then why wasn't I enough? That question destroyed me. Because Daniel had been enough. He had been kind enough, loyal enough, patient enough. The problem was not that he lacked something. The problem was that I had never completely let go of the past. Daniel picked up his jacket. "I'm going to my brother's." "Please don't leave." He stopped at the door. Then he turned around. "I loved you with my whole heart, Emily." His voice broke. "But I can't stay somewhere I'm only half loved." The door closed. I stood alone in our living room. The same room where we had laughed, celebrated birthdays, and planned our future. For the first time, I realized that some choices cannot be undone. That night, I called Ryan. He answered immediately. "Emily?" I cried. "Daniel knows." There was silence. Then Ryan said, "Come with me." I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But I suddenly understood something I had refused to see. I had spent so long asking which man I loved more. I never asked what my choices were doing to the people I loved. And now, it was too late. The next morning, I woke up alone. Daniel was gone. His side of the bed was cold, and the silence in our house felt louder than any argument. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at my wedding ring. For years, I had believed that love was about finding the person who made your heart beat faster. Now I understood that love could also mean protecting someone from the damage you could cause. I called Daniel again. He answered after several rings. "Emily!" His voice was tired. "I need to see you." There was a long silence. "Why?" "Because there are things I need to say." We met that afternoon at a small park near his brother's house. Daniel sat on a bench, looking older than he had only a few days before. I sat beside him, but I left space between us. "I'm sorry," I said. He looked ahead. "I know. I never wanted to hurt you. I believe you." His answer surprised me. Then he continued, "But not wanting to hurt me doesn't change the fact that you did." Tears filled my eyes. "I loved you." Daniel finally looked at me. Past tense? I swallowed. "I still love you." He gave a sad smile. "That was never the problem, Emily." I looked at him. "What was?" "You didn't know how to choose." His words stayed with me. Daniel took off his wedding ring. He placed it in my hand. "I need to leave." My fingers closed around the ring. "Is there nothing I can do?" He shook his head. "Maybe someday we can forgive each other, but we can't go back to what we were." Then he stood and walked away. I watched him disappear between the trees. And that was the last time I saw Daniel as my husband. A few days later, Ryan came to my house. I expected him to take me in his arms. Instead, he stood at the door and looked at me sadly. "Are you okay?" "No." He nodded. "Neither am I." I stepped aside and let him enter. For a moment, I thought maybe this was finally our chance. Daniel was gone. Ryan was here. The path seemed obvious. But Ryan sat on the couch and said something I never expected. "I can't be the reason you lost your marriage. You didn't do this alone." "I know." He looked down. "But I still helped." I sat beside him. "I chose you." Ryan shook his head. "No, you chose me after everything fell apart." I started crying. "Ryan, I love you." "I love you too." "Then stay." He closed his eyes. "I dreamed about hearing you say that for years." "Then why are you leaving?" "Because I don't want to spend the rest of my life wondering whether you chose me because you loved me, or because you couldn't live with losing Daniel." I had no answer. Ryan stood. He kissed my forehead gently. "For what it's worth, Emily, I never stopped loving the girl I knew." Tears rolled down my face. "But she's gone now," he said softly, "and maybe we both need to accept that." Then he walked out. This time, I didn't chase him. I knew I had lost him too. Months passed. The divorce was finalized quietly. Daniel moved to another city for a new job. I heard from a mutual friend that he was doing well. Ryan moved back west. and I stayed in Ohio. For the first time in years, I was completely alone. At first, the loneliness was unbearable. I blamed myself every morning. I remembered every lie, every message, every time Daniel held my hand while my heart was somewhere else. But slowly, I began to understand the lesson hidden inside my pain. I had loved two men, but love alone had not made my choices right. I had confused desire with destiny. I had confused old memories with the future. And worst of all, I had believed I could postpone choosing without hurting anyone. I was wrong. 1 year later, I visited the little cafe where Ryan and I had first met again. I sat by the window with a cup of coffee and watched people walk through the rain. I wore no wedding ring. I was not waiting for Daniel. I was not waiting for Ryan. For the first time, I was simply waiting for myself. I finally understood that sometimes the hardest person to forgive is the person you see in the mirror. I couldn't change what I had done. I couldn't return Daniel's trust. I couldn't give Ryan back the years we lost. But I could become someone who would never lie like that again. Someone who would choose honestly. Someone who would understand that real love is not about holding on to two people at once. Sometimes real love means letting one person go. Sometimes it means letting both people go. And sometimes, before you can truly love someone else, you have to learn how to live honestly with yourself. My name is Emily Carter. I loved two men, and I lost them both. But the greatest heartbreak of my life taught me the greatest lesson. Love is not only about who your heart chooses. It is about the truth you owe the people who trust you with their hearts.